right, recording is going and we are live. You guys look good. You don't look too tired. It's like, what, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or it's like 9:30 there, right?
9:30 p.m.
9:30, okay. And Victoria says hello. Abahad says hello. Abdul just joined. Dave Clayton just joined. Everyone's coming in the room. So it looks like we have an Illustrator party going on here. So we were talking, of course, before we got the stream going, before the official time, and we're just catching up. And one of the things we got into a discussion about was like, when did we start using Illustrator? And I know it's, it may be hard for you to fathom, but just because they're on the Illustrator team doesn't mean they've always been on the Illustrator team and they haven't always worked on the product. So Niraj, you said you started like back with Illustrator 5, I think it was?
Yeah. So as I said, I've been here for a while, and that while is about 15 years. Just completed 15 years in this team and in Adobe this March. And I started using Illustrator version 5.5 somewhere around 96, 97, and that's when I picked up the pen tool. The first tool that everyone starts with the pen tool, I think.
Everyone has a love-hate relationship with the pen tool. A lot of people that started with it in school end up loving it because they were taught to use it the right way. And people that, had to learn it on their own, sometimes didn't always learn the best way to use it.
Yeah, initially I just could not figure out whether to pull my hair or the handles. But gradually I fell in love with the tool and the pieces that you draw, and the curves came out perfectly after a lot of practice. So that's when I started, and I've been on this team for the last 15 years. And
15
enjoying
years. Wow. That's awesome. And Ashutosh, what about you?
So I've been with this team for 16 years now.
Okay.
A few months before Neeraj did. And I'm a senior manager with the Illustrator engineering team, and I manage the quality department. And I'm working out of Noida office. Noida, if you people are not aware, it's just near capital city of India, that is New Delhi. And Illustrator version 10.03, which was a dot release, that was my first Illustrator version that I played with a day after I joined Adobe.
So cool. So I actually started, and I was telling Naresh the story that I started really with like version 1.1, like not the very first 1.0 version, but I got in shortly thereafter, and of course, then I think the next year it went to Illustrator 88, so around 1988. But I was never really using it to draw or do graphic design or artwork like many people use it today. For me, back then, Illustrator was more of a utility. I used it to trace things because I was doing page layout and doing a lot of things for customers where I needed to make their logo vector, for example. And even though I could scan it in at whatever it was back then, 100 DPI, whatever it was, it just didn't look good. So I would use Illustrator and use the pen tool. I did learn how to use the pen tool eventually. Use the pen tool, and I would trace things just to create the vector versions of those logos that I was using. So that's where I started with Illustrator all the way back then. But like I said, I used it for many years just as a utility to convert graphics into vector art, not so much to draw them from scratch.
So I think those were the first workflows of Illustrator, and that was when the sketches from paper started to come into easier, and that's the reason why we have a template layer in Illustrator going all these years. You can lock an artwork, you can trace over it. Locking is one mechanism, but the initial reason why template layer was introduced was tracing it, because then your pen and pencil and the tracing tool, which was used to be there back then, they would work only on the template layer. We still have the template layer.
Yeah, and there was a preview command to actually see your work when you were ready to look at it, because you were either working in art or outline or preview. You really weren't working like we do today, where it's always previewing what you're doing. So I see a lot of people are laughing. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Yeah, that was the way it was back in the day. But luckily, we're not back in the day now. We are here today in 2018. So Guys, tell us a little bit about, and let's say in the last couple of years, what you've been focused on with working with Illustrator. Like, what have you been doing to it to make it better? I've been seeing all the updates, but a lot of times people will get an update and still keep using Illustrator the way they always did. They don't necessarily even know that there was something new, especially if it's under the hood. So tell us a little bit about the work that's gone on in the last couple of years.
Sure. Do you want me to start, Ashutosh, or would you go ahead?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. I'll fill in.
So one thing that we have been consistently focusing on is improving the user experience of getting into the Illustrator and starting with the product. Over the years, we have built enough features so that people do not go by the Adobe way of doing things, but they discover their own way of managing the vector art, the images, the text, and the plugin art that they create inside the application, and they can do it the way they want it. In that process, it felt as if there is a lot of an interface burden going on with the user. For example, when I started, there were hardly like 20 tools or 25 tools to start with, and it wasn't a mental burden. But gradually, when we built a lot of tools in it, a lot of functionality, which is empowering a lot of creative workflows around the world, we felt that it was getting overwhelming for people who were coming new to us, and also for people who were using the product for a longer duration and they only confined to certain features. So one thing we focused on was how do we make your experience better inside Illustrator. And the first step we took in that direction was building the properties panel, which got shipped last year. So if you've been managing your panels a lot while working, this is one experience that smoothens your experience of creation. So that is one direction we are taking. The other major piece that we are focusing right now is improving the performance of the application to an extent that it is really responsive. And you would have noticed we have moved the rendering of the preview, which Terry just talked about, to GPU. And there's more coming on the way. It's not a one-stop solution that we have done and we will not move forward. We gradually modernize the rendering experiences. And there's a lot going on in the application where we are working on the performance and the parallel track while smoothing the experience and improving the performance is building new capabilities. And when we say we are building new capabilities, we introduced Puppet last release. We have more such exciting things lined up in our future releases. And at the same time, we are communicating and talking to more people than we have done in the past. And we're engaging more with the users. So those are the 3-4 areas we are focusing right now in the last few years. And we are seeing good engagement on all of them. Ashutosh, would you add something to it?
So just touching base on the aspect where Neeraj talked about, we're talking to more people. So in that direction, what we have done is we have opened up a new portal. It's called illustrator.uservoice.com, and we also have opened up our beta program, which is the pre-release program as we call it at Adobe. Earlier it was a closed community where it was invite only. Now anyone with a valid Adobe ID, free or trial, can come and join us there. And not only look at builds, we also keep sharing features even at the stage where we are just checking out. So that means people get a chance and we also get a chance to learn from them and kind of improve features way better than before. Another aspect that we have been focusing on is the Illustrator team has been more involved on social media and or forums than ever before. That has also helped us, and I'm not sure it's good or bad, but a lot of people even have our email addresses. So they're not calling up support, they're just writing to us directly.
That's awesome. So it's interesting you were talking about performance, and I, as you were doing that, I was bringing up an example to show people of how just one of the clear-cut examples of what performance is like. And before I get to that, I just wanted to give some shout-outs here. Felicia says the property panels rock. So a property panel rocks. Thanks you guys for putting that in. And Chris says, I love AI. Chris, we do too. And is that Leafy says, hi. All right, so welcome everyone. And again, thanks for being on live here with the Illustrator team. Let's see. Please improve the copy and paste or cutting and paste to and from Adobe Animate CC. So I don't know what the issue is there, but certainly something to look at. But before we get to that, let me go ahead and switch over to, I'm just going to show you guys a quick thing on performance. You might remember this graphics, guys. So what I've done is I've turned off the GPU acceleration. I basically put Illustrator back to before they did the performance updates. And I've got this fairly large, complicated illustration open. I'm just going to go ahead and click on it and zoom in. And I'm on a new computer, like I'm on a 27-inch iMac, and the performance is, it's okay. I mean, I can zoom in really tight here, and this is kind of cool, and I can really get down to the details of this. But now let me zoom back out, and let me just go up to this little rocket icon in the upper left corner here, and you can see that this is the GPU performance, which is currently switched off. Let me go ahead and switch it back on. Click OK. And now instead of just clicking to zoom in, I can zoom in fluidly. I can zoom in directly to the area that I want with no performance lag whatsoever. I'm short on desk space here, so that's why I'm having to do it in multiple strokes. But look at this. This is just freaking amazing what you can accomplish here with the performance here in Illustrator CC, just taking advantage of those GPU accelerations that you talked about. So very cool. Let's see. Rolando says, I like that a lot. You guys back? Yeah, you're here. Okay, so Dave Clayton. DKNG graphic. Dave, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Oh, those are made as the illustrators. I'm not sure. So how are you zooming? You have a choice with the zoom tool. You can either click or you can click and drag. If you click and drag, that will zoom you into a specific spot without the GPU acceleration turned on, but you can click and drag to actually zoom in more fluidly, just like Photoshop implemented a while back.
There's a third way. If you just click and hold, that area zooms in wherever you're...
Yeah, and click and hold as well. So let's see. Lots of love in the chat. Any questions in the chat? Love the scrubby zoom. I do too as well, Michael. So that's what you've kind of been doing over the last couple of years as far as working on performance. And of course, someone gave a shout out to the properties panel. And Naresh, you were saying that it was just adding a lot of things to make Illustrator more approachable. You mentioned the templates. You mentioned just tools like the curvature pen tool, things that will make it more approachable, especially to new users, without, and this is an important point, without taking away the way traditional Illustrator users have always used the product. So they still use the tools that they know and love, and you can even configure your own custom tool panels with just the ones in it that you know and love and use. So exactly. What am I missing? What else have you done from a usability standpoint?
So usability comes in different packages for different people, and one of the things that we did purely based on user request, and that was our 30th anniversary feature release, was we introduced image crop. People, I know Photoshop is the only and the perfect tool for all things related to image editing. But there are simple pieces like cropping an image and getting rid of the extra pixels that you don't want to be embedded in the file. That was a top requested feature and we did it. So it seems like it's just one feature add-on, but it actually meets your performance requirements in the workflow. So performance means many things to many people. One is like faster zoom, faster pan, quick copy, paste, save is one part. But having features that make you do things faster so that you don't have to switch between applications or tools and wait for those operations to complete. That again is a performance story tool. And in that same aspect, in the same state, I would say, uh, the Puppet warp that we did last year, ability to deform a vector was a painful process. It is still painful if you do not use this feature. And if you're deforming an art in a form that you would like it to, this is the tool that saves hours of work for you. So we build features that are making you more performant. At the same time, we are investing into ensuring that the core performance of the application meets your expectations of simple operations that happen every second in your workflow.
Definitely, you mentioned a couple that I had already forgot about. I mean, they were recent additions, but it's one of those things. There's so many cool things being added, to each release that it just I sometimes forget about them. So you mentioned one of my favorites, which was Puppet Warp, and you mentioned another one of my favorites, which it seems like no brainer, but Crop. Not having to do all the masking, jumping through hoops to get an image cut down to just the one part of it that you want. Just implementing that simple crop tool has definitely made life a lot better.
Yeah.
So one thing that I would like to talk about is there is a feature request on UserVoice. Terry, you should definitely share the link to UserVoice in the comment section so that people can come there and visit there and post more feature requests for us. So one of the feature requests there was when you are on dense machines, like you have been using a 5K 27-inch machine, right? So if you go to the display section and start using the more space option that you have there, Illustrator suddenly would start, the icons are so tiny out there. And one of the things that we are doing this release or the next release for our customers is trying to scale up the UI. It's not about adding a feature. It's just, even if you just make the user interface usable like properties panel or scaling the user interface to make people find those icons quickly, easily, it helps a lot. So we had done validation with few of the users and they were like, man, probably I don't need to use my specs now. So that was the kind of reaction people had.
Perfect. So you mentioned the user voice and wanting that feature request feedback. And that URL is actually right below us, like over there, down there. So it's illustrator.uservoice.com. It's been up, it's up the whole time. So in case you miss it, or if you're watching this on replay, you can, of course, always scrub back to it. But if you want to, like I just saw somebody, what was it, Vasa? Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, says, will you add something like the Phantasm's color management natively? And so that's, again, one of those feature requests that if you want something in Illustrator, this user voice site is a great way to do it, because not only are you just like submitting feature requests like we might have seen in the past where you go to a forum, you submit a request, you never know what happens after that. You never know if anyone actually saw it, if anyone read it, if anything's going on. The user voice site is very different. You're actually submitting requests and people can vote on features. So the higher the votes are on a particular feature, the more likely they are to get done. And everyone's seeing what people are asking for. So that way 10 people don't have to ask for the same exact thing in 10 separate requests. They can just go vote up the feature that someone's already asked for that they want. So the user voice is very important. So that's that URL right at the bottom here, illustrator.uservoice.com. All right. Sandy Cohen is in the chat as well. Sandy, longtime Illustrator user, saying she was having a problem with a complex document, and she's asking, should she turn the GPU feature off? And you know what, Sandy, it really depends on, I'll let them speak as well, but it really depends on your system. I have seen cases where, depending on the graphics card can actually impede performance of the GPU acceleration in some of the applications. So without knowing more about your system, it's certainly worth a try if you were running into problems with a complex system and having GPU issues with it not performing well. So Shafiq is asking, what is the future of SVG in Illustrator? Do you guys have anything to say on that, as well as the complex performance document?
So SVG kind of in very near future. I mean, so let's look at things we have done with SVG in past few years, right? So we gave you an option for export for screen, which lets you not only just export to PNG but also to SVG. We also gave an option, I believe, 1.5 or 2 years back, which was kind of more optimized SVG, not the kind of SVG we were doing save as for probably years now. So Illustrator can now generate SVG, which is more optimized for the web workflow, and that is what our customers were asking for. The other thing is we have a person on the team who is part of the SVG working group, so we couldn't have had a better person than him to join the team, and he has been working with us, and SVG will definitely be an area of focus for us. I forgot this. 2 months ago, we also delivered a feature which was native SVG copy paste. So you can open SVG on a notepad or a text edit app on a Mac and paste it right inside Illustrator to get better graphics. So definitely, SVG has a great future and a big future, and we'll continue to invest on it.
All right, and we heard it here first. SVG has a big future. He promised it, so it's all on him now.
Yeah, we investments in SVG. We may be taking some small steps in the direction, but we are taking significant ones.
Right. And for the beginners in the audience that are like, what's SVG? What are they talking about? The SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. And one of the huge benefits SVG gives a web developer or web designer is the ability to work with vector on the web. So taking Illustrator files, converting them to SVG or bringing them in natively, depending on the application, and having them convert to SVG for the web is huge because you get scalable vector graphics on the web. So it's huge for that reason. All right. And Shaplik said, thank you for that response. Let me see if I missed any questions above. And we got a couple minutes left. So if you have some questions for the team, now's the time. We're not going to hold them too long. They're late night in India, so we'll let them get out of the office. They're still in the office, believe it or not, just for this stream.
No, we love being here, so time is not an issue, but we love to hear the questions coming on the board.
And Sandy corrected me on SVG, says it stands for something very good.
Yes, that's the code name.
Right, that's the code name, something very good. Nice updates for, let's see, Billy's saying, nice updates for the handle and anchor size really saved me time. So you're getting a lot of praise, guys. People are loving the work that you're doing to make not only Illustrator perform better, which I know there was a time where people were saying, how come Illustrator hadn't got any new features? And that was because a lot of it was going in under the hood. It's kind of like you got to fix the foundation before you can start piling new things back onto it. And they did that work for the performance. So now we're getting the benefit of it by having some of those new features come in. And you're getting praise for all those features, so that's great.
Yes, and Ashutosh revealed a feature where he's saying he would be scaling the applications interface. The journey actually started with the anchor point scaling, and we are taking that forward in the upcoming. We are investing in scaling the interface for the future. And I think there's a lot of curiosity in what we are doing ahead. I would recommend you to go to our UserVoice channel and see the requests that have come up and what the updates on those requests are. It will give you a fair idea of what we are trying to build for future. But if you really want to take a look at the designs that are on the table for the features that may come up in future releases, do feel free to join the pre-release program, download the build, keep an eye on the conversations going on, and the spec and the builds being posted there. You can even report bugs on the builds that reach to the team directly, and we talk to you about it. So those are the avenues of knowing what Illustrator team is up to.
Awesome. So I did see a couple questions pop in at the last second here. Dave Clayton has one that's interesting. So I think I know your answer will be go to UserVoice and check. But Dave's asking, I have a question. What from Sneaks at Max, so you remember Sneaks last year, is the most furthest in development for Illustrator? Like, was there a sneak, which by the way, sneaks don't necessarily guarantee they're going to make it in, but was there a sneak that you guys can say is coming without getting in trouble? Like, was there a feature that got sneaked that you can say, yeah, that's kind of being worked on, or no? If not, it's okay.
So I would definitely not put myself in an odd position here by committing something publicly or denying something. All I can say to Dave is here's how it goes. What happens in sneaks is a very, very early stage of an idea. It's probably just a prototype. It takes a lot of effort to productize that prototype and then integrate into the applications that they are targeted to. So even if we look at what happened in the last Max, what things were sneaked, they are still on the drawing board for many products to look at. Some would be little ahead in their journey, some would still be catching up, but it takes a long time to get every piece of that new technology or the shiny piece integrated into the application and being presented to the world. It's a long journey there. It takes a while. I can't say which one we are working on, which we are not.
All right.
But having said that, if we join pre-release forum, we'll answer that question for you.
Yeah. So, if you're willing to sign the NDA and be on pre-release, then you can know things in advance. So Alex is asking a good question, and I never thought of it, but it's a valid question. So what are the obstacles involved with adding rotate canvas to Illustrator similar to what Photoshop does, especially for people that work on tablets and they want to rotate the canvas while they're working or drawing? Is that something on the drawing board or not?
I'll share some thoughts around it. Although there is a lot of conversation on this topic on the UserVoice, but I'll share some challenges here. The coordinate system that we follow is a very, very strict one, and it doesn't allow a lot of things to go outside or in a rotated manner. That's one technical challenge. It's not that this challenge is unsolvable, it's that it is a complex problem right now. The other thing that is more of a user expectation is around effects that get applied. So, for example, if you apply a drop shadow and you rotate the object, the drop shadow doesn't rotate. Because the drop shadow follows a global lighting and an angle. So it's not just about rotating the artboard. It probably could be a solvable piece. There is a lot going on in many areas where we need to rotate everything in that context. And having said that, it is in the engineering team right now. They are looking at what could be done to solve this problem. But we would not present a half-baked solution where the artboard rotates and not the other things do not. And your appearance changes with every rotation. We would not like to present that kind of an experience to users. We'll solve it completely and get there. And we are investigating and working on it.
I love that answer. It's not a firm going to happen, but at least it's something that's being worked on, or thought about, or looked at.
Actively explored, and till we find all the right answers, we would not venture into that.
All right. So, and I'll end. This is going to be the last question. I'll end it with Shafiq. So Shafiq's asking, Adobe Illustrator is becoming heavier and heavier with every update. And of course, when we have these 25, 30 plus year old applications that have a long legacy of features and workflows, and they're just used all across the board, do we have any fear that an Illustrator or a Photoshop or an InDesign can become too big. Now, I know we kind of sometimes create applications, newer applications with specific purposes like XD
Right.
that isn't the full version of Illustrator and isn't the full version of Photoshop by any means, but it's geared towards a subset of those features for that market. So what's your thoughts on, is there a day Illustrator might be too big?
Saying that Illustrator is too big is not the right term I would use.
Okay.
I would say it's feature rich that supports a variety of workflows. And every user can use the application the way they want it. But still there's a perception that this is kind of a big application. It's a huge, it takes a lot of time to process. And it has too many tools that you do not want to use. It has enough features that you probably have never even touched upon. And data shows us what people use often and what they don't. What I really believe that this is more of an experience thing than a feature richness problem that people call out to be. What we are doing right now and what is happening with all the majority of the feature-rich products is that we present everything flat on the face to the user, like the whole interface comes to you in an overwhelming manner. We are trying to streamline those experiences for you. So the feature and the tools would always remain there, but you would be able to pick the ones that you want, the ones that you've been mastering. At the same time, the ones that you do not use, do not go away, they just take a back seat and they're available on call. So we are trying to streamline the experience of venturing into the application, because it does feel at times that there's too much happening inside Illustrator and people do get lost. So all I would say is there's no, the option to cut down or trim down the features of Illustrator is not a possibility, because we would like to be the richest application in terms of feature, but at the same time, we would like to streamline the experience of you picking the right tool and the right panel and the right feature when you want. It doesn't, the other things do not bother you. So that's our plan.
And that's actually, if you think about it, you have actually taken some approaches to accomplish that. When all the applications got workspaces, and now that we can customize our tool panels to just what we need, that way the user doesn't have to be exposed to everything all the time. They can really streamline Illustrator to just what they want without taking away features from everyone else.
Right.
All right. And Rufus is in the house, so you guys want to give a shout out to Rufus before we say goodbye. And Sandy's still asking for either graph features inside of Illustrator or even a separate graphing application.
So graph is a very old and a powerful feature. We have been hearing a lot about graphs from people, and it's also on our UserVoice. We have done a lot of user interviews to understand what would it take to make the graphs rich and usable for them. We even are exploring an option of creating a completely new application if it matters to the user that graph that you create inside an application should be consumable by Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, all of them. Does it have to be a different application, or is it a graphing tool inside the product that needs to be enriched in? That those conversations are happening right now, and those discussions are on the table. There's no deadline or there's no fixed roadmap around it right now, but all we can say is that the team is actively exploring the solutions that require to be built in for graphs.
Got it. All right.
Sandy,
and with that, you want to add to it? Go ahead.
Sandy, maybe you can join us on a pre-release program. We would love to have that conversation with you there.
All right. You got a personal invitation, Sandy, so you can't ask for more than that. All right. So with that said, guys, this has been great. I love having you as my guest on the stream today. and more importantly, love having all the customers giving you direct feedback, whether it's a question, whether it's a product feature request, or even just praise on the work that you've already done, which has been tremendous. So with that said, thank you, and have a great night in India or wherever else you might be in the world. So cheers, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Naresh. Thanks, Ashutosh, for being here and making this stream great today. So
thank you so much, Terry. It was nice, and thank you for joining us on this session. And we would love to hear more. I think there are 3 Twitter handles to watch out for, and
yep, they're all down there.
All down there. So we love to hear you and your suggestions, your complaints, anything that you want Illustrator team to know about. We are there to talk to you and listen to you.
All right, sounds good. So with that said, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.